Right, so the last thing we dealt with this afternoon was how to dimension something which is essentially symmetric around a center line. So this object is mostly symmetric. The only thing which is not symmetric are these mounting slots, which I've put one horizontal and one vertical. This is meant to be some sort of flange to hold a shaft. Not sure if that would actually work, but it's just to illustrate. So let's go to File, Make Drawing from Parts. I'm going to select A3 UJ 2021. Okay, and I'm going to pull in the bottom view, which is something I pulled in this afternoon, and then I in fact wanted the top view, which looks like that, but since I pulled in the bottom view, I thought, well, I'm going to rotate it. So I showed how to rotate this view, which is 180, which is not something you actually want to do, because in fact you want to make use of these views. So something to watch out for is if I now swap this to the top view, which is what I want, it'll seemingly rotate itself back to 180, but it hasn't. If I go back to the rotate command, you'll see it's at 180. It should be at 0 degrees, and that's just a function of this, obviously, of different views. So let's just quickly make this a little bit smaller, so that if I pulled out, this is the top view, if I pulled out a view from here, projected view, that's the front view, and I now pull out another view from here, which is the bottom view, you can see what the relationship is between those three views. Okay, so that's the one I pulled out from my palette. It's not the one I want. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And then I'm going to scale this up back to sheet scale, which is 1:1. And then just a quick note that you should be bringing these views in according to the symbol, which is first angle. And the way you can make sure that that happens is once you've got a view in here, or I think you can do it beforehand, if you right click on sheet and go to properties, you'll see that there are two buttons here at the top in which you can decide whether you want first angle or third angle. So I've obviously chosen first angle as part of my setup, so it should bring it in automatically. So on that point, I think some of you had questions on why your dimensions weren't coming through as I had them on screen. So we'll go back there in a second, but I just want to just show you this feature first, which I'm sure I have shown you before, but just to remind you, if I want a completely clear view and I don't want this origin point, I can just click on this eye, and everything that's featured under the eye is now hidden. If I click on the eye again, no. Alright, there we go. So these are all the types of features that are going to be visible in this view, and here's the view origins. I can switch that off and you see it disappears. Okay, so now I want to introduce back into this view, if it didn't come through with the center marks in, I want to introduce those. So under annotation you'll see center marks, and I can just select, I'm going to select the biggest circle on that one, the biggest one on this one, and then I'm going to select the slots, which it'll also do, not entirely to my satisfaction, but that's okay. No, let's keep it like that. Right, so that gives you the positions at least of the holes and the slots, so now from here we also need a center line. So underneath center mark is center line, and you'll need to select, sometimes you can say select view and it'll put them in for you. I think in this case, because it's not completely symmetric, it won't put it in. So we tried this afternoon and it didn't do it. Never mind, what you do is just select two lines which are, or two features which are around the center point, center of the object, and it'll put the line in. So what's great about the center line is that it remains the center line. I can only extend it, I cannot drag it. Not going to work. Okay, let's just extend that one. I cannot drag it from left to right, but if I move the drawing, it moves with the drawing. Right, so that center line is in fact going to become your datum. So let's put the datum in here, and I think this afternoon, yes, this is what I did, but it's actually not the primary datum. Primary datum is, let's do this view quickly, projected view. Primary datum will be the base, this part here. So let's put that datum, let's just move this datum to this base. And I've asked please to drag the datum out so it doesn't point to that. Or if it does point to it, it's because there's an extension line. So let's put another datum in here, right? And then the third datum, or your tertiary datum, is this line here. It's horizontal line. Right, so everything that you dimension around this point, which is not to do with, say, these unusual features, should be around the center point. So let's create a dimension around here. So 8 degrees is correct. You should not be dimensioning like this from that line to the center. And this all has to do with the way in which we're going to be tolerancing things. So I'm not going to go through the tolerancing bit that I did this afternoon. I'm going to leave that out for now because we're going to cover it later. But just to quickly show you, right? Oh yes, that's right. The other thing that we need in here is some indication that this is in fact a centerline datum. So I need an annotation, which is up at the top, note, and you'll see under text format on the left hand side there's an add symbol button. If you click on it, you'll get all the most commonly needed symbols other than the ones that you already use. So centerline, degree, diameter, spherical diameter, and so forth, right? So centerline is obviously a very used one. It's one I want. I'm going to put it in here. If it wants to put in a little leader, just go to the left hand side and under leader click no leader, and then you can place it. Once you click it once, you should be able to click it again, right? And then it'll carry on doing it, in fact, so you need to escape or right click. Okay, so that little symbol there says that all dimensions that cross over this line are divided evenly by that line. So in fact it's dating in that it divides this 58 very neatly into 29 and 29, and in fact keeps the tolerances floating in a sort of very narrow range around this line. We'll get into that later. So I'm not going to dimension too much else, primarily because I can't really dimension in this. These are all just tangent lines. I need to create a section view. And the same would in fact go for this. I think, no, I can dimension this one because that's not, but this outer one certainly is. Okay, and the reason I know that is if I go to this view here, I'm going to unalign it, break alignment, and it's not doing it. Why is it not doing it? It's done it already. Okay, so the reason I know that that line there is a legitimate place to dimension from is that that line, or that circle, that sort of cylinder there, is represented by that line, and that line there represents a tangent between this top plane and that plane there, that cylindrical plane. So you don't want to dimension from tangent lines. You always want to dimension from an actual end-on view of a plane. Okay, I think that's about it for now. Center lines, maybe a little bit more. I will quickly demonstrate to you here how to dimension a slot. So you just need either a single width, or you can do a radius if you want. But if I do go like this and I say times 2. We don't even need to put in slot. By the way, some of you have been putting text beforehand. Don't do that yet. That's reserved for other kinds of notes. So anything which has to do with quantity, put it in the back, or TYP, put it in the back. So that's 8 times 2. Okay, so there might be a little bit of a gap here. This is because I had to do a quick edit and find out how to dimension a slot. One thing you don't want to do when you put the center marks in, you do not want to select the second slot ends one, because you're going to have a problem with dimensioning, and I'll show you now how that works. Is click on this. Okay, let's say if I start dimensioning between here and here, I'm going to find it very difficult. It won't actually do it. So if I then try and dimension from one arc to the other, it'll put the dimension in. The moment I click on it, no, we're all right. Okay, so we're okay. Okay, so never mind, you don't need to put in 2 center points. It'll pick those up in any case. So I'm going to just say that that's also times 2. Capitals, capitals. Always dimension in capitals, please. All your text should be capitals. You might find that you have a little bit of a problem dimensioning from that line there to here, in that if you select the center point, it's not going to do what you want it to do. The trick is to select this point and then select the end of that center point. Then you'll get a usable dimension. Okay, so I think let's try this bit here. Go, got it. I don't need to dimension to the end. Oh yes, right, so we're going to deal with a little bit with settings. So for instance, this radius 47 is not doing what I wanted to do. That's correct, except it's got this leader line, which I don't like. So there are 2 ways of dealing with this. Is once you're in the drawing, you go to leaders and you can select all sorts of things. So for instance, I can say here that I want the dimension to only point to the arc, not go to the center like that. And your text position, you might be getting something like what I've got here. You can select this horizontal one, or you can select the aligned text. No, that's not going to do it. Horizontal one. But if you want to not have to bother about doing that all the time, go up to your settings, your options box, go to document properties, make sure that the ISO modified SW2020 is loaded, but in spite of mine being loaded, it's also not doing the right thing. So all you need to do now is select on one of these items and re-establish the kinds of relationships that you want. So diameter, for instance, might be like that. You just select the broken leader one, and you probably will have display with solid leader on. Deselect that one, and then radius would be something similar. You might have something like this, in which display with solid leader is selected. Select the center one and deselect the display with solid leader. And once you're happy with all of your settings, yeah, let's just quickly see. No, it seems to be right. Save this ISO file to the place where you've got it saved, and it'll replace it. And then next time it brings it in, it should bring it in with the settings that you desire. All right, so good luck with that. This is something you're going to be using in future, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.